Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching the LGB Alliance podcast. I'm your host for today, Sylvia.
And I'm Arianne.
I'm Joss.
Last but not least, I am Kai.
Today, we're going to be discussing a phenomenon that I think a lot of same-sex attracted people are familiar with, having to justify or qualify, reason your sexual orientation to a straight person, heterosexual, or maybe just non-homosexual person. And I think we all probably have some stories about this. And so I'd love to hear those stories and how they affected you. Did it get better? Did it get worse? I can start for myself. I grew up in middle America, the Bible Belt, and was surrounded by religious people, Christians, but not all Christians, that just had a very clear opinion about being homosexual or same-sex oriented. And I had a situation recently, and I'm no longer in the Bible Belt, where a Christian was curious about how I got to be how I am, which is a lesbian, and just having him ask, what makes you, when did you know for sure that you were lesbian? How did you know? And then, just asking questions that kind of come off like this person was trying to piece together what made me the way I am. And it was a very interesting conversation. I was happy to have it because I know this person and I felt that the question was being asked in good faith. But it did leave me feeling kind of weird for the rest of the day and the following day and today, thinking about it. And yeah, just it's like being gaslit about your sexual orientation when it's like, well, you're not really homosexual. And it's like, well, then what is this feeling I'm feeling?
Well, I have a question when you say that like it really stuck with you and that it's kind of nagged at you over the last little while. What is the feeling that's really like getting you? Is it the gaslighting? Is it the
I think it's two things. It's a constant questioning of my understanding of reality. You know, I experience the world. I feel a type of way towards men. I feel a type of way towards women. And I have come to a conclusion that it's like, okay, well, there's a name for this. It's called being a lesbian. Um, that's why I'm not fulfilled when I'm with men. That's why I'm only fulfilled when I'm with women. Um, and then to have that paradigm questioned, not necessarily overtly, but just to feel like, oh, this person doesn't think this is a real thing. It's like, okay, well, is it a real thing? Am I the crazy one? Am I actually able to be with a man happily and fulfilled? And, should I continue to try to conversion therapy myself and, do more harm? And then it's like, no. And I have to go back to the therapy that I've done with self-acceptance and being like, this is natural. It's normal. It's good for you to not put yourself in situations where you are repulsed and sick to your stomach. Be fulfilled, have a loving relationship with a woman, build a family in your own way, not necessarily the traditional way. And that's okay. You're not hurting anyone by doing this. and I will say, you know, to his credit, he didn't make me feel like he thought I was hurting anyone by being a lesbian, but just to talk with someone who just not only doesn't believe you, but desperately wants you to behave in a different way. Because in this person's mind, I'm going to burn an eternity, and he really likes me and he doesn't want that to happen, you know? That's been a constant theme in my life, talking with people. When I was younger, I wasn't necessarily talking about my sexual orientation, but just talking with religious people about sexuality, because I was like, what are your thoughts? And I was curious. I wanted to know their opinion and then to hear their true thoughts. And then for me, being like, internalizing, oh, well, they're talking about me right now. Like, that's probably why I was so curious and so, you know, inquisitive about their opinions, because deep down I was like, okay, well, I really like this person. I care how they think about me. What do they think about gay people? Because deep down I know I'm gonna be gay when I finally feel things, you know? So it really impacted my self-perception.
I'm of the older generation, so it's a little different. But I also have experienced this, and ultimately, when I had more, maybe less, shits to give, I would then just like turn the question back on the individual, like, how did you know you were straight? How many men did you sleep with to figure out that you really want to be with women? Because when it comes down to it, it feels very, I've tried to be open and answer the dumbest questions that have ever been posed by heterosexuals because they don't understand lesbians. And I'm a nerd, and I've done a lot of gaming with men in their 20s, 30s, whatever, on up. So, like, we answer dumb questions, right? To try to build a bond and make it more accessible, especially for my generation where gay was still being used constantly in gaming. So we were fighting back about like gay being used as a pejorative. So just like breaking the ice and getting people to see like lesbian is normal, gay people are normal. I would answer really dumb questions, but even when they feel really homophobic, even when they feel really patronizing and condescending and misogynistic and all the other things that it feels like in that moment, and with the most earnestness I can and the most like patience that I can muster. So I understand the frustration of doing it. I haven't had to do it in a really long time, and I'm sorry that you've had to go through it recently, uh, because it is unnerving.
It's been a while, so you know, it was like, good, okay, got to shake off the dust and practice this self-preservation again. I got it. Kai, you look like you had something you really wanted to say. Did you have a thought?
So I'm the youngest here. Um, I can tell you something about Gen Z. Even though we do say that we are more open about things, it's almost like, regardless of what generation it is, especially in the Black community and Latino community, I noticed so much more questions like that. Oh, what made you go gay? Like, just what made you go straight? What made you like women as a man? And why are you asking me as a woman to like other women? What made you think that? No, seriously, because even as far as within the past year and a half or so, I've had people maybe not necessarily like ask me directly what made me go gay, but what makes me think that I couldn't enjoy stuff with a man. Like, a tongue is still a tongue, and my boyfriends wanted to be with a Black girl before.
Okay, wait, can I jump in really quick? Because you reminded me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, the tongue is a tongue thing. So I had a biker say that to me recently, fairly recently. He, you know, long story short, he said, you know, he also can give a woman really good, whatever.
You can do that.
Which super inappropriate to say to me, but like the context, it's a hilarious story. I wasn't too offended. was really annoyed, but like I didn't go off on him. But my response was, I looked at him, I go, well, just like you don't want to look down there and see a full bearded man, neither do I. And he burst out laughing. And that was a good moment because, you know, there was a part of me that was like, okay, full disclosure, this was at a fucking women's rights rally that I was at. And this biker guy thought that was an appropriate joke to make while I was advocating for lesbians not liking dick. But I could tell he was just really impressed with my passion and was just like, well, hey, gosh, I'm in love with you. Like, I can go down, you know, and it's like, okay, I can either get really pissed off and go off on this guy, or I can just be like, you're an idiot. Do you want to look down there and see do you want to look down and see you on, think about that, bro. I don't want that. And he laughed really hard. And I think he blushed, first of all. And I was like, yeah, you should be blushing right now. But that was, you just, oh, the tongue is a tongue thing. Yeah, that triggers me.
It's like, you don't, it's like, I personally am like, okay, I've done the whole forcing myself to kiss other boys thing. I've done that in high school. I've done that even online. I will not do that because that is not me. It's like, what made me go gay? Well, gee, golly gosh, I like to not lie to people. What else do you want me to say?
Yeah, for me, I admittedly don't have a lot of experience with the more conservative, religious, homophobic avenue of questioning. As you can tell from my background, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I didn't actually get exposed to a lot of that. But I definitely got and get a lot of this sort of heterosexual male bro sort of, you know, are you sure your sexuality isn't fluid? Sort of it's sort of a denial that actual exclusive lesbian women exist, and an insistence that like, you know, lesbians could still be available for them.
For our first listeners, can you please define the word lesbian really quickly?
A lesbian is a homosexual woman. So a woman a woman is an adult human female, and so a lesbian would be a woman who's exclusively attracted to other women.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. So to our
Yes.
listeners who are new here.
Yes, it's very important to know that. But a surprising number of people don't get that. And the other angle I get, and I would not call this hostile or negative at all, I actually find it kind of endearing, is people from other countries that are very much more homophobic countries. And talking women are, and they don't, I think they're sort of maybe questioning their own sexuality, but they don't really quite get it because like they themselves were not exposed to gay rights anything growing up, so they'll sometimes prod me for like, well, how did you know? And then they might explain what they're going through, and they're like, well, does this make me bisexual? And sometimes it's genuinely hard. Like sometimes when I'm listening to them, I honestly don't know what to tell them, because their framework for, you know, understanding sexuality is so much different. There's a lot more repression of female sexuality in these conservative cultures, and I want to help them, but I don't really know exactly what to say.
That's really, really interesting that you say that. It made me just kind of appreciate how, you know, we're LGB Alliance United States, and there's a unique kind of homophobia, and if it's not necessarily homophobia, homo inconsiderateness, if you will. What's like not quite phobia, but just, you know, still getting used to it. You know, it's a fairly new concept in this century to be fully okay with people live and let live type of mentality. And I'd like to believe that most or a lot of the world has gotten to that point where we're in a live and let live type. all in good taste, obviously. But that the experience of every location on Earth is going to be unique to that place.
I think part of it too is in some of these cultures, you know, there's like there could be arranged marriages too, and so people aren't really expected to sort of own their sexuality, if that makes sense. You know, it's more like their marriage is not about love. It's just something that, you know, your parents figure out. And so I don't even think they necessarily um it's like just even telling them to have some agency over their love life, for lack of a better way of putting it, that can be, I think, something that's maybe real. Well, it's definitely really alien to me, but it's also something that makes me wonder about, you know, most of human history, when this sort of thing was normal in a lot of human history, to just simply not marry for love. So in some sense, even just having that sort of agency over your love life is kind of a radical thing.
Do you think, this is a question for everyone, the whole concept that marriage was not meant, you don't marry for love, that frame of thinking kind of informs this disbelief that homosexuality is real, or in our case, lesbianism, and that then people think, well, like, you could just choose to be happy with someone of the opposite sex.
That's a really interesting point, and a really good point. And I like that Arianne brought this up about agency, because it's something that we don't have to face really here in the U.S. But it's salient that so many people have had to repress themselves throughout history, and or just like we have all these historical novels that talk about, you know, this lovelorn situations because there were arranged marriages. And it is a good point that maybe they feel like it's like first world problem to be gay and to come out and live your best life and be happy and whatever, because so many generations before didn't have that option.
You know, it's always something I feel good about. It's like it's a privilege to be here and talking about like this whole thing about worrying about, oh, who chose to be gay, and people are literally being like thrown off roofs and
Right.
criminalized for even looking at the same sex the wrong way.
Right.
So I want to feel blessed that I am in somewhere where the most ignorant people can simply either temporarily try to beat me up or you know, ask me dumb questions. Dumb questions I wish some of these folks would love to have to answer, instead of worrying about if their mothers and fathers will try to arrange them with the opposite sex partner or send them off to some brothel.
So, Kai, do you think that the pendulum has swung from the conservative, you get thrown off of roofs for looking at the opposite sex in a lustful way, to now it's become like so accepting, and now we've surpassed that and we're creeping back into not necessarily a conservative mindset, but a new mindset that has the same outcomes that conservative mindset has?
So
For example, go ahead.
Some people have obviously not left a more conservative mindset. Like I can tell, even at my age, I know there are some people that will still believe in that. They still will believe in these very, very not good mindsets that they're like, even in privileged old United States, we still got some people that will still ask you or even just be very disrespectful to you because of that. And so with the pendulum shifting, I think the whole pendulum shifting and focusing to being so accepting will even accept people that use 7 different pronouns in one set just to justify 2 testosterone-ridden lesbians in love, and using bug self pronouns that who are disassociating from being female so much that these people are seeing this and not seeing any other LGB people, or not seeing the people who are struggling, in that we're getting back to that mindset. Even as like my mother was just simply fine with me and my brother being a gay and a lesbian and a gay man, it's like she's asking if I'm associating with those types of people, and it's not true at all.
So you're saying that there could be a backlash to the current state of the community.
There's the backlash is already coming. It
Okay.
has been around for a while. I've seen it.
I agree. I was honestly talking more so about the homophobia that comes from the so-called queers.
Yeah, the backlash is from them is still astronomical. Like I still get asked, but even I still get wondering if I should even put that I'm a exclusively a lesbian, a homosexual female on a Hinge profile, because what if I get reported? What if people straight up tell me, well, that's ignorant. You why can't you like women? Why can't you like trans women? And it's like, because they're male.
Right. So it's the exact same type of homophobia or homo inconsideracy. But I'm no longer being asked it primarily by the conservative Christians like I used to, or Jehovah's Witnesses. It's now from people that are super open-minded. And the fact that I've lost more friends for stating that a penis is not a female sex organ and lesbians don't like dick. My progressive, open-minded friends are the ones who cut me out, not a conservative Christian, not even a Jehovah's Witness.
The
So,
conservatives would be like, well, gee, I agree with you, kinda.
well, right. They'd say, I still think you're wrong for it. Or you could change. No, because see, a lot of them think you could change if you really tried. And that's what
That's
these friends also felt. You're just a bigot and you could change if you really tried. It's not that I'm sinful, it's that I'm bigoted.
well, bigotry to
But
them
again,
is like as much like a sin, akin to how even even wearing a certain piece of garment would make sinful thoughts in a Christian conservative mindset. That's what I feel.
Joss, Arianne, have you noticed an increase of this homophobia, homo inconsideracy from a conservative backlash to the current queer culture? Have you experienced that more, or the homophobia from the so-called queers, would you say?
So I don't know about your experience on Twitter, Ariane, but for us on Instagram, like I'll just take a sample of what I've noticed on Instagram, and that we've had both. So the predominance is um, progressive, leftist, liberal, probably well-intentioned people giving us those "you're a bigot," just blanket. You're a bigot. You're transphobes. They even will call us homophobic. Interesting. Um,
Hold on, I gotta stop you there. What's the homophobia? Do they understand what that word means?
I don't really, I think one of the big problems is like Ariane had to give definitions for woman and lesbian. And that's because so much of our language has been corrupted that we need to almost have a glossary of terms are acceptable every time that we engage with the public now, because the language has been distorted so much. Um, so I don't know that they know if what homophobia is, or what even transphobia is, because transphobia is everything now. So I mean, it could be anything, um, but to not be so like snarky or whatever. We get a lot of that left-leaning anger and hostility in the comments, and a lot of times it's on really benign posts, like just coming out of left pocket. But we have also seen that conservative. Um, it, and what is interesting to me is that it's it tends to be younger people. Like you can tell one that like the age group that's writing you, and then usually I'll look at the profile too. And these are people that have not graduated high school yet. And they'll come through with some really outdated, conservative, like surprisingly conservative uh, points of view. That, but it is like if it's probably from their parents, it's probably from like maybe their community, whatever. But I would say that that's probably like a 5% to a 95%. Like it's much, much more that liberal, progressive leftists, your transphobes, your bigots, your right wing, your all of these things getting blanket labeled.
I mean, it's the same on Twitter. We get both. Also, for some reason, the leftist critics also accuse us of white supremacy. It's just like they think everyone they don't like is a white supremacist somehow. It's just they're just using these terms as slurs. They don't even really. They're not thinking about how to deploy them properly. That's what I've noticed. And yeah, I've definitely noticed some homophobic, just good old fashioned conservative homophobia. One person suggested that Uganda was right to pass, the death penalty for homosexuality, stuff like that. Usually when those people post, it's sort of more like a one-off thing, and they don't like get a lot of likes or go viral, on a tweet or something. But we definitely get that. And I don't know about the age. I haven't checked on the age profile.
Yeah, I do all that sleuthing. If you come to our comments and you say something untoward, I'm gonna look at your profile and I'm gonna see like who is it I'm dealing with, and it tends to be those from the progressive left seem to be more in their 20s. So they seem to be a little bit older for the most part, but it is also young people. And here's something like just as somebody that's a Gen X, like Gen Zennial, like the crossover between X and millennial, uh, we didn't have something to say about everything. And one of the things that I noticed, and maybe like that's kind of how you had this conversation with this man, um, everybody has something to say about everything now. Like, and they are really quick to say it too. Like and definitively, like this is the thing. Um, I don't know. It's generational or what, but
Opinions are like assholes. We are coming up on time.
I guess for me, my closing thoughts is that look, people can have whatever opinions you have. It's that either from the traditional homophobic side with ignorance or the queer homophobic side with their purposeful, willful ignorance slash ignoring of history. All that matters is that we as LGBT people can continue to speak up because there's no shame in being exclusively homosexual or bisexual. There's absolutely zero shame. Let's just leave it at that.
I thank you for saying that, Kai. You gave me the idea for my closing thought. That I think there's a difference between genuine ignorance and a desire to learn more about someone who's homosexual or same-sex attracted, and then there's the kind of like gotcha whataboutism, like I'm gonna prove that you're wrong about yourself type of thing, that I do not appreciate. But if someone I'm not gonna lie and say that it doesn't sting to be asked those sorts of questions, even if they are in good faith. But I'm much more willing to engage with someone who is asking in good faith than someone that's just trying to make a joke at a lesbian feminist gathering. Okay.
I think that your response to that dude was perfect because it really does put it back on them to consider their, like, everything is coming from the stance of, it tends to be that, like, you're missing out on something if there's not a dick involved. So when you put it back to him, like, well, are you missing out on something? Because maybe you need a dick involved. Like it just yeah, and you kept it funny, and that way you were able to diffuse. And that's something that we kind of all do as lesbian, bisexual, and gay people is we learn how to diffuse really and pivot. Diffuse and pivot so that we can not take aggression from other people, and we can keep trucking and leave them with, like a good engagement with a homosexual, even if they still think that we're wrong or whatever.
Yeah, and I agree. And actually this does now remind me of something I asked a long time ago on social media. Instead of asking instead of trying to justify homosexuality to homophobic people, ask the homophobic person to justify heterosexuality.
All right, on that note, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you to everyone who stayed and listened, and hope you had a good time. We'll be back again. Peace.